Well, here we are with my Arduino four-wheel drive Rover put together. Well, most of the way put together. So, got some troubles, lots of troubles. These things, the kit is not that great. It's missing standoffs for a bunch of the screws and the mounts for the boards. It doesn't come with enough leads to hook up the boards that the kit comes with. It actually only comes with 4 leads, and you need a bit more than that. Lots of other little things, apart from the fact that I can't get the code to work at all. Right now I've got my, well, it's not actually tuned, not dialed into the waveform here, but here's my my Rigel DS1052E. Loving this scope. This thing is just stellar. I got it hooked up to the pulse width modulated outputs for the motors, and right now we're showing about 55% duty cycle ish. I can't get the motors to work right. This thing just takes off and reverses and takes off and reverses, and I gotta have a deeper look at the code, but the other code that you can install, that was another option for the one with the servo, wouldn't compile at all. I couldn't paste it into the Android program or the Arduino program at all. Wouldn't take, all kinds of compiling errors. So I just hooked it up with the other style program with the sensor static, and I can't get that to work either. So I got to do some deep dive in to see whether I've got some hardware problems with the output to the motor driver board, which is down under here, or I've got coding problems. The stuff is written in very broken English, and I believe that they possibly messed up the code. Anyway, what I'm going to do is actually I'm going to flash this right now, and I'm just going to try with only the ultrasonic sensor, the distance measuring, and I'm going to make sure the board is capable of taking the sketch properly, and just start troubleshooting through. Probably not going to devote a lot of time to this, but we'll see how it works. So, moving right along, I found the first problem. Because the kit didn't come with the wiring for, say, the ultrasonic, I had used some cabling I had from an old PC. I have no idea where I got this, but it was a nice set of push-ins, right size of pin. It was already in a shielded cable, or so I thought. So put the scope on and started tracing it, and I couldn't figure out what was going on with one of my signal pins, particularly this guy right here. It went into that nice end of this, but this is what it was hooked to. It was hooked to the shield inside, and the factory had niftily snipped off the wire, and they had done it really nice. It was completely concealed in some really small heat shrink, and I had no idea. That conductor that I thought came back out the other end did not. That end was actually dead-ended inside, and the shield was hooked all the way through. Sad. Anyway, what the hell. Okay, here's the level of frustration. So, what I did is I got nowhere with the new wiring. I still had the same problem. So what I did is I switched this the ultrasonic sensor over to a completely new Uno board and hooked it up. I got the same results. What I got was -1s, which means out of range, constantly on the serial port. So I bumped that up to like 5,000 so that I wouldn't get out of range anymore, and I get these ridiculously long distances. So I hooked up the scope. I don't have it set properly here, but you'll see, well, actually you can't really see it, but the pulse for the trigger is there and is bang on according to what the programming says. Just the return pulse is not, and intermittently really long in between. So I took this thing and took a closer look. I'm not going to be able to get this without a macro camera, but under the magnifying glass, that little guy right there labeled, what is it, Q1. I have to get see if I can find a schematic on these things, but that is broken on that pin. I don't know whether there's any other damage, but I'm going to try to solder it. It's broken right at the surface mount. The solder isn't connected. I could see it under the magnifying glass. So, Jesus, what a bastard. It's one crap load of work for a dinky Rover. In hindsight, I don't think I'd recommend buying these Sainsmart boards at all. There's a hell of a lot of headache and troubleshooting because you can't necessarily just say it doesn't work because you don't know if the code works, and they don't supply decent code on their site. Their code is pretty, well, it might be decent, but you can't tell because the broken English and the rest of it makes you doubt it. So this sketch I actually grabbed off a website where the guy had some video of using this exact sensor on just an Uno. So I knew the numbers were solid. It's pretty straightforward. There's not much you can go wrong. But yeah, I'm going to try and solder that and see if I can fix this for a Rover that I'm not going to use. Should probably just break it apart and take the boards and cut my losses now and start planning on using them for something else, because I still think I have a motor drive problem. But anyway, the fun of working with the Arduino stuff. But this scope proved invaluable. This is my first day with my new Oscilloscope, and anybody who wants one, thinking about buying one, just go get it. Don't even think twice. This thing is incredible, and it allows me to see exactly what's going on here. I just threw both channels up, and I knew by the timing that what the program was returning was accurate. So I was able to skip a whole lot of guessing and prove something. So anyway, that's where I stand. Well, resoldered that and no joy. So didn't help. Same readings out of it, so it's got more problems. That was clearly broke off, so it probably did some damage to one of the ICs or something. I don't know. She's junk. It definitely didn't happen since I had it, so because it's a fair bit of effort to wipe one of those off the board, being surface mount. You need some kind of impact probably on the assembly line. Anyway, things aren't worth much. Time to walk away from that and do something else. Well, last edition before I call this quits. I came back down after my frustration level hit max at this defective unit. I'll go on Amazon and send them a message now that I know what else is going on. I didn't want to give any feedback or let them know until after I knew whether the rest of the darn Arduino and sensor board and the motor controller were going to work. And I couldn't make them work due to the sketch that was provided being reliant on the distance sensor. So I hacked it up and basically just deleted most of it. And I just set 2 of the motors high and 2 of the motors low, which should give us a continuous direction. And throwing the switch, that's what we get. So the good news is that's exactly what we're getting. It works. So the Arduino is taking the program no problem. Everything seems to be working. So it looks like I'm down to just one sensor and all the other fun that goes with it. And thanks to this other Arduino board. Yeah, so all in all done. Good enough for now. I'll mount the servo and run the leads for that. And basically the servo mounts there, and then Johnny 5 style, and that's what I'll call it. He looks around and checks for obstacles in his way and whatnot. I kind of am at the stage now where I want this thing to work before I walk away from it and rip it apart. It's actually just kind of neat, despite the troubles, and that's obviously what you're going to have when you work with this kind of thing. I have the same stuff with the flight sim, except now I have some equipment that makes life a hell of a lot easier for working with it. Really quick tour of the bench, my Fluke. If anybody doesn't have one of these variable power supplies, get one. They're cheap now. This is a WEP. It's worth every penny. Works great for this stuff. Buy that Oscilloscope. if you're at the stage where you can use a scope, or you're into such electronics work, even if you're just doing Arduino stuff, these things are $350 ish now, and you can't fail. These things are great. And also, like the WEP there, this is my WEP solder station with hot air rework. Love this thing. This thing, it's great for the price. The iron isn't as good as my old Unger, but the rework station makes it, well, it paid for itself the first GPU I resoldered on a laptop, so that paid the whatever the thing cost, like $60. So anyway, that's off topic. Everything's off topic on this channel, in case you didn't already notice. So that's where we stand. I'm going to leave it at that. Get ready to mount the servo in that, and maybe throw a bunch of LEDs, or I don't know what I'm going to do with this thing. Before I tear it apart and part it out, it's kind of neat. Might as well see what it'll do.